My name is Elda Marin. I'm 70 this winter, and I spent most of my life believing that good manners could hold a family together. I was wrong on the night everything broke. Merida was bathed in gold, one of those December nights that makes even the moss on the oaks seem festive. My living room was lit by candles, with the scent of mulled wine floating among laughter and the music of a piano. Every year I organize this gathering to remind myself that we were still a family. This year, I should have listened to the silence between the notes. My daughter, Amara, arrived wearing a crimson dress that turned heads. Her husband, Tadeo, Vela, followed a half step behind with that easy smile people mistake for charm. They had a way of filling a room until everyone else seemed to fade away. I served the wine, answered polite questions. I ignored how they always steered the conversation toward the responsibility of legacy. When Tadeo raised his glass, his tone was light, but his words were heavy with talk of family unity and knowing when it's time to pass the torch. Some guests laughed uncomfortably. I smiled, as always, until Amara's gaze met mine from across the table. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mom, you've had your time, but you can't hold on forever. To me, you're already dead." The words fell like breaking glass. Even the piano stopped. Tadeo let out a soft laugh as if it were a clever phrase. For a moment I saw every version of her. The little girl with paint on her hands, the bride I helped dress, the woman who now discarded me in front of strangers. Something ancient within me grew still. I carefully set down my glass and said, "Understood." Then I walked out, past the stunned guests, the bright lights, the aroma of wine and roasted nuts. The cold air hit my face like cutting water, a clean wipe. Behind me, the party continued with awkward murmurs. In front of me, the city lights stretched toward the river. I didn't know what was next, only that something in me had closed, quietly and completely, like a door that would never open again. The night air followed me home. The chill lingered long after I closed the door. I sat in the dark living room with the echo of Amara's words trapped in the walls. It wasn't the first time she had tried to hurt me. It was just the first time she had succeeded. On the mantelpiece was a photo from another December decades ago. In it, I was still teaching art at the local high school, with chalk dust always on my sleeves, and my husband, Elias, was behind me, his warm arm around my shoulder. He was a quiet, gentle man, but he never said no to our daughter. I envied his ease with her. He would come home with paints, dresses, whatever I might have pointed to. Meanwhile, I was trying to teach her that worth isn't something you wear. Discipline first, I'd say, then expression. She would call me cold. I called it structure. Neither of us was wrong, but we were both stubborn. At 15, she learned that charm could replace effort. She looked more at the mirror than the canvas, worried about how the light fell on her hair. When she lost an art contest, I gently told her that talent needed patience. She ran crying to Elias's study. Minutes later, he appeared with flushed cheeks. "You could be softer with her, Elda," he whispered. "She just wants to feel seen." But being seen became being indulged. Attention became currency. When Elias's heart stopped 6 years later, something in Amara hardened.
She stopped calling me mom and started using mother, dry and formal. She filled her days with business dinners and photo shoots, always chasing a life big enough to withstand the loss. I tried to reach her, birthdays, parties, even an apology I didn't owe, but the bridge kept breaking. I remember being in her new apartment, surrounded by glass furniture and unopened books, thinking that nothing there felt lived in. That's when I understood that some children don't grow up, they just get sharper, carving their own reflections into anything that shines. And now, after all these years, I still saw the outline of that sharpness cutting her smile at my table. Tadeo Vela entered Amara's life like a warm breeze from the river, easy, confident, too smooth to distrust. I met him at a spring lunch in the Plaza de los Flores when the jasmines were bursting into vibrant pinks. He took my hand with a polished charm that felt rehearsed. "Señora Majarin," he said, "Amara tells me you're an artist. I envy those who make beauty tangible." He sounded sincere. I wanted to believe he was. For a time, their marriage had that same shine. Lavish dinners, magazine photos, laughter that resonated a little too loudly. Tadeo was one of those men who made others feel like they were a step behind. His questions were casual. "Your house must be worth a good deal in this market. Or are you still handling your finances alone? Or does someone advise you?" Each question came with a smile that suggested harmless curiosity. I'd smile and change the subject, but I stored every conversation in my memory, like notes for a painting I would finish later. Then, Amara began to mimic his tone, her little darts racked in silk. "Mom," she'd sigh, "you should modernize the house. Buyers in Merida love open spaces. Or maybe you should move closer to us. Don't you get lonely here?" The house she called charming was the same one where she learned to walk, where Elias planted the oak tree out front. I learned to feel without agreeing. Neighbors began to whisper, with discreet mentions of an investment club Tadeo had formed, promises of quick profits. The florist on the corner told me her cousin lost his savings in one of his projects. I listened with a tight heart, realizing that the charm I once admired had sharp edges. That same week, I made an appointment with Clara Talavera, a meticulous lawyer known for her discretion. She reviewed my accounts, helped me create a private trust, and transferred the deed to my house to it. It's not paranoia, it's preservation. When I left her office, the sky over the river had turned the color of tarnished silver. I thought of Tadeo's easy smile, of Amara's rehearsed laughter beside him, and I knew that charm, like water, could wear down even the hardest stone, unless you learned when to step back. The walk home from the party felt longer than ever. The streets of Merida were empty. The air was sharp with winter and a distant rain. My heels echoed against the brick sidewalk like a metronome counting the final beats of an old life. I didn't cry or even tremble. I just walked alongside the river, past the iron gates I once closed to keep Amara safe as a child. Arriving home, the lights I had hung still glowed from the windows, soft and golden, as if mocking the night's disaster. The silence inside was almost kind. I took off my shoes, entered the living room, and saw what was left of the celebration. Overturned cups, a half-eaten cake, laughter that still floated like smoke. I picked up a broken wine glass, its stem cold between my fingers. Red stains spread across the lace tablecloth. I washed each piece in the sink, one by one, until my reflection became steady in the water. Between the plates and the drying rack, I understood that I wasn't angry, just finished. Before I went to sleep, I opened my phone and deleted every number for Amara, Tadeo, even Elias's old contacts, which still lingered like ghosts. The screen went blank, and I felt lighter. In the drawer by my bed, I put away the photos of Amara in her wedding dress, Elias's proud smile,
The three of us pretending to be a family. I sealed the box with tape and slid it to the bottom of the closet. The morning came, pale and silent. I made myself coffee, opened the windows, and let the cold air flow through the house. For the first time in years, I didn't check for messages. The world kept turning without me trying to hold it up. That week, I sat across from Clara Talavera in her small office near the river street. She adjusted her glasses, drafted the documents, and slid them toward me. "This will protect you," she said. "It's simple, definitive, and completely yours." I signed without hesitation. When the pen left the paper, the sound was clear, like the snap of a thread breaking. Sometimes peace sounds like the click of a locked door. The envelope remained on Clara's desk for a week before she called. Her voice, usually serene, had an edge that made me pause by the kitchen window. "Elda," she said, "I did some digging. Amara co-signed one of Tadeo's loans. They called it an investment club, but it's really a high-risk fund registered in Guadalajara. The company collapsed 2 months ago." I listened to the rain hitting the glass as she spoke, her phrases short and precise, words I myself used when I needed to stay calm in front of my students. "Are they in default?" I asked quietly. "Completely. The creditors are looking for any address linked to them. Some old estate documents still mention your house." Clara sighed. "It's not dangerous, but it's uncomfortable. I'll handle it." After the call, I stayed by the window until the rain blurred everything. The pain in my chest wasn't a surprise. It was something more opaque, older, like an echo of every time I had cleaned up my daughter's messes. 2 days later, a letter arrived from the bank addressed to Elda Marin, trustee of the estate of Elias Marin. My name still intertwined with his. Inside was a statement of overdue interest and a note asking for property verification. The handwriting on the form was unmistakable, Amara's, rushed and uneven. I folded the paper carefully and put it in an envelope for Clara. My hand trembled only once. That afternoon, Henrik, a neighbor, stopped by to return a borrowed wrench. I must have looked distracted because he tilted his head and asked, "Trouble?" "Just old ghosts trying new tricks." He leaned on the porch railing, watching Canelo, his little dog, sniff among the wet leaves. "Then don't chase them. Desperate people never knock politely." His tone was soft, but his eyes were firm. "You've done more than enough rescuing." After he left, I made tea and looked at the closed door. The house felt smaller, every creak and whisper loaded with memory. I told myself that boundaries are a form of mercy, lines that keep love from drowning in obligation. But a small, stubborn part of me still wanted to call her, to ask why she had put my name on that form. Instead, I put my phone in a drawer and turned off the light. The river outside maintained its slow, steady rhythm, as if reminding me that letting go wasn't cruelty. It was survival.
The storm began after midnight. The wind scratched at the windows. The rain beat against the old shutters. I was rinsing a teacup when the first ring of the doorbell cut through the noise, then another and another. The sound was sharp, frenetic, like a warning. At first, I thought it was the wind setting off the bell, but when I checked the porch camera, the screen lit up with faces I once knew too well. Amara, soaked to the bone, was at the door, mascara running down her cheeks. Behind her, Tadeo paced in the rain, his coat plastered to his shoulders, his expression caught between irritation and fear. My heart stumbled, then steadied. I watched them for a moment, their figures blurred by the downpour, before I opened the inner lock just an inch. "Mom!" Amara gasped, her voice raw. "Please, we need your help. Just for a few weeks. We had some complications." Tadeo stepped forward, his hair stuck to his forehead. It's temporary, a bridge loan. You have capital, you could easily refinance. Family helps family. The words sounded rehearsed, like a well-practiced speech. I felt the same coldness from that night at the party, only colder now, because desperation had stripped away their veneer. I can't, I said softly. Amara's eyes flashed. You mean you won't? Tadeo let out a short, sharp laugh. Don't pretend you're destitute, Elda. We know about that trust. We just need access. Would you let your own daughter sink? Behind his tone, I heard panic. Real this time. But it didn't move me. The house behind me felt alive with its stillness, every inch holding the silence I had fought for. I have nothing for you, I said. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Amara's lip trembled. Please, just this once. We'll pay you back. Amara, I said, you already owe me more than you'll ever repay. For a moment, the only sound was the rain. Then Tadeo muttered something and went down the steps. Amara remained with her hand on the doorframe, as if she could remember warmth. I closed the lock and turned off the porch light. The doorbell didn't ring again. Only the wind kept beating, as if it refused to learn the word no. By morning, the storm had passed, leaving the world clean and pale. The doorbell didn't ring again that night, but I barely slept, my mind tracing the shapes of their faces on the porch. Amara's eyes wild with panic, Tadeo's jaw tight with fury. There was a time I would have opened that door without a second thought. That time was over. Close to noon, another knock came. Not frantic this time, but measured, heavy, as if they already knew the answer. I looked out the window at the same couple, no longer soaked, but exhausted, their clothes wrinkled, their eyes red. I opened the door wide, but not enough for them to come in. Come in from the water, I said, out of instinct. Then I stopped myself. No, stay there. It's dry now. Amara clutched a damp purse against her chest. We just need something small, a few thousand. The bank froze our accounts. Tadeo was talking to investors, but she trailed off, looking at him. Tadeo's smile was gone. We're not asking for charity. This is family. You owe it to us, at least in her father's name. There it was again. The invocation of a man dead for 20 years, still used to shame me. I felt my heart slow, steady, anchored. Wait a moment, I said, and returned with a thin manila folder. I put it in Amara's hands. It's not money, I said quietly. It's a list. Shelters, legal aid, debt recovery programs, places that will actually help you. Tadeo looked at the papers, his expression souring. Seriously? You're giving us a brochure? You have a house, savings. He took a step forward, but the threshold stopped him like an invisible wall. No, I said, and my voice had more weight than I expected. He stood still, nostrils flaring, the anger failing to conceal his fear. You'd let your own daughter rot out of pride? I looked him in the eyes. No, out of peace. Amara's lip trembled. Please, Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking on the second word. We have no other options. I looked at her, the same tilt of her chin I once kissed goodnight, the same defiance I mistook for confidence. My throat tightened, but the tears stayed where they were. Amara, I said softly, the dead don't come back. Her eyes filled, confusion giving way to an empty understanding. Tadeo cursed under his breath and pulled her by the arm. As they went down the steps, the folder slipped from her hand, scattering across the porch. I didn't bend down to pick it up. I closed the door slowly, pressing my palm against the cold wood until the bolt clicked. The house shook as the wind passed, rattling the frame, and then it was silent. I sank into the nearest chair and finally let the tears come, not from pain, but from release, like the rain that had washed Merida the night before.
The weeks passed, marked not by events, but by the quiet rhythm of everyday things. The mornings smelt of rain and coffee. I started painting again. Slow, deliberate brushstrokes that meant nothing more than the peace of creating something with my hands. Merida was starting to warm up. The air in the Plaza del Jazmín was sweet with the scent of flowers. Life felt small and mercifully stable. One afternoon, the mail brought an envelope with Amara's handwriting. I held it for a long time before opening it, expecting another plea, another justification wrapped in guilt. But the note inside was brief, 4 lines trembling on the page. "I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. We lost more than money, and now I see it. I'm trying to fix things. I hope you're well." No requests, no flourishes in the signature, just a small fragment of truth. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it under the lamp on my desk. That night, I replied on a sheet of paper, the kind I used for student recommendations years ago. Heal first. Respect is the only key to this door. I didn't sign it, "Love, Mom," not because the love was gone, but because it no longer needed to be proven. Outside, the porch light flickered once before steadying. I turned it on and let it shine. It wasn't an invitation, it was a boundary made visible, a soft light for anyone willing to approach with respect. Henrik passed by the next morning, balancing 2 coffee cups. "Up early?" he said, setting one on the railing next to me. "Habit," I smiled. "Old teachers never sleep past dawn." He looked at the lit lamp and nodded thoughtfully. "That's a good light. Not too bright, not too dim." Canelo, the little terrier, had also returned. Now he was sleeping on the top step with his nose tucked under his tail, as if he had finally decided this was home. We drank in comfortable silence, watching the first ray of sun filter through the Spanish moss. The city was waking up slowly, carriages rolling, shop signs creaking, gulls calling from the river. I breathed in the morning, the scent of damp stone and honeysuckle, the sound of peace rebuilt. My hands were steady again. Love built me. Boundaries saved me. The lamp beside us shone against the clearing sky, a small promise of balance between grace and self-respect. And as the light spread across the Plaza del Jazmín, I understood that peace isn't something you're given. It's something you learn to keep.